Hello everyone, this is Sineve, and I'm coming to you with You'll Learn to Love Me, a Yandere Masky X-Reader by FluffyWubs. We're going to be starting off with bonus chapter, Whiskers. A small tip brush slid along the canvas smoothly, leaving behind a gorgeous trail of colored paint. Helen tilted his head to the side, looking at his painting from another perspective. It looks good so far. His canvas laid on the ground on top of some plastic trash bags that were spread on the ground to prevent any paint staining the carpet. Helen was sitting on his knees before deciding to sit in a cross-legged position. He rotated his body to the side to dip his paintbrush into the paint on the palette, and before he did, he noticed something that didn't belong there. A paw print. A paw print that was embedded into the blue-colored paint. And as soon as Helen looked back to his canvas, it was already too late. Tiny blue-colored paw prints ran across his painting. Helen followed the trail of paw prints with his eyes until his gaze landed upon an innocent-looking cat that stared down at the painting. His tail slowly wagging behind him as his big curious eyes eyed the painting before slapping another paw print onto it. Helen released a sigh, running a hand through his hair. "You're on thin ice, cat," Helen breathed out, picking up the canvas from the ground. "Third time this week," he commented before walking to the other side of the room, placing the canvas next to other ruined paintings because of Whiskers. Helen went back to his working space, collecting the trash bags off the ground which had a few splatters of paint on them. And with the bags in his arms, he walked to his trash and practically shoved the trash bags inside. He makes his way to the kitchen afterwards to wash off his paint-coated hands. While he washing his hands in the sink, Whiskers jumped on top of the counter, peering at the streaming water in Helen's moving hands. Helen blankly stared at Whiskers as Whiskers stared back intensely. The feline released a loud mewl, which could only mean one thing. "Food, yes, I know. Give me 1 second." Helen bluntly responds to the house pet. He turned off the sink before drying his hands on a towel and walking to his fridge. He didn't have any food meant specifically for a cat, but he did have a few snacks that cats probably enjoy. Helen grabbed a can of tuna from the back of his fridge, shutting the fridge door behind him. He opened up the can of tuna. And Whiskers immediately recognized the fishy smell, making him jump off the counter and follow Helen all the way to his bowl, which was basically an old bowl that Helen didn't use anymore. Helen bent down to his knees, forcing the tuna out of the can by shaking it down until it dropped onto the bowl. Whiskers wasted no time in downing the food put into his bowl. Helen breathed out softly, looking down at the hungry cat before he stood up. He can't help but ponder if Lou's ever coming back for the cat. I mean, he can't stay with this cat forever. Helen chucks the empty can into the trash, and it's been weeks since he's ever even heard a peep from Lou. Helen's calls were left unanswered every day, and he's starting to think that Lou just didn't want to own the cat anymore. And maybe it's better to drop the cat off at a shelter. Yeah, he'll probably do that today. After barely 3 minutes, Whiskers was done licking his bowl clean completely. He seemed rather satisfied as he licked his lips before strutting his way to the couch in the living room. Whiskers jumped onto the couch before stretching out his paws, letting his claws pop out for display before curling into a ball and shutting his eyes. And Helen simply took a seat next to the cat before switching on the TV. He'll take the cat to the shelter in an hour or so. Considering Helen didn't have any sort of cage to put Whiskers in to take him outside, he had to walk around with the cat in his arms. And lucky for him that Whiskers is a rather calm animal when he wants to be. And at that moment, Whiskers was peacefully relaxing in Helen's arms as he walked through the streets. As Helen walked his way to the shelter, he coincidentally saw a familiar little girl walking his way. The little girl seemed to be eyeing Helen with intensity and concentration as she walked closer. And Helen wasn't sure who the little girl was, but she sure looked familiar. "Helen, hello," the little girl greeted as soon as she was close enough. Her eyes caught the cat in Helen's arms, making her smile broadly. "Oh, what a cute kitty." She stood up on her toes to give the cat a scratch behind the ear, but she didn't mind at all. Helen kept eyeing the girl. The name was in the back of his mind, yet he couldn't put his finger on it. He knew he saw her somewhere before. "Say, have you seen Wyan around? She left so quickly and didn't even say goodbye." Her smile was quickly replaced by a disappointed frown. That's when it finally dawned upon him. Right, she's the girl that he saw at the hospital when he had to take care of Wyan. Cece, was it? Probably. It looks like she's already out of the hospital. Helen shook his head. No, I haven't seen her. Have you by any chance seen Lou? Helen asks. The little girl blinks in confusion as she tilts her head. No, they... Cece hesitates in speaking, fiddling with her hands. He was on the news, she simply replied, and Helen arched a brow. He was? Cece nods her head. I saw when I was watching TV with Mom. You should watch it too, she recommends. Anyway, I need to go. Mom is waiting for me at home, she states before waving. Bye, Helen. Bye, Kitty. She waves her hand before going on her way again. Helen purses his lips. Lou was on the news, huh? He'll check that later. If he picked up his pace, he'd be at the shelter in less than 10 minutes. Helen arrived at the shelter soon enough with the cat still in his arms, and he walked to the reception before placing the cat on the counter, catching the attention of an older woman that sat behind a computer. Hi, how can I help you? She questioned. I'd like to drop him off, Helen simply stated, watching as Whiskers carefully sneaked along the counter, sniffing curiously at multiple things. The lady let out a hum, standing up from her spot. All right, please hold, I'll be right back, she states as she walked away from behind the counter and into the back room. As Helen waited, he took the opportunity to check his phone to find out why Lou was on the news. It wasn't too hard, considering it was the first article in the most popular news source. Helen quickly skimmed his eyes over the article, finally taking in what happened and why Lou wasn't responding to any calls. He's dead. No wonder. He was apparently shot dead, but by who? It says that the body was found at the apartment of YN, which came through as a surprise to Helen. YN seemed like such a sweet, soft-spoken girl that wouldn't harm a fly. I guess he was wrong about that. Helen looks back at the cat. Lou didn't leave the cat because he wanted to, he just got taken away from him. And the lady soon enough comes out the back with a pen and paper in hand. She slides it onto the counter, handing the pen to Helen. Fill this in, please, she says as she sits back down in the chair. Helen pauses, grabbing the pen and clicking the nib of the pen out. And he looked down at the paper in front of him. Basically a document you had to fill in specifying information about the pet, age, name, gender, all those things. Helen blankly looked down at the paper. Would Lou have done this? Even better, would Lou approve of this? Helen silently debated with himself internally before he came to a conclusion he never thought he would have come to. Actually, Helen sighs, sliding the pen and paper away from him. I changed my mind, he states firmly as he grabs a curious cat off the counter. The lady shrugs her shoulders. Have a nice day. Her tone sounded a lot more sarcastic than before, and Helen hummed as a reply as he walks back out of the shelter with the cat in his arms. This is probably the most ridiculous choice I've ever made, he sighs, making Whiskers look up curiously due to Helen speaking up. Helen briefly looks down at Whiskers. Guess you're my pet now. That is the end of that chapter. The chapter after that one is bonus chapter Aftermath. I will get to that in the next episode. Most likely tomorrow. But until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Please have a wonderful day, and thank you guys for being so patient. Bye-bye.